Hello, and this is Satya Prakash Tripathi, and today I am going to discuss on entity framework code first approach. So to start with, entity framework is an object relational mapping tool which maps your application specific objects to your database objects. So to explain this, let me just give you an example. I've been asked to get the employees data from the SQL Server database and display it in my UI. So the approach that everybody is the basic approach that everybody would follow is that create the DAC layer. You then write your select query, then create your SQL command, SQL connection, then assign that query to the command, execute it, get the data and assign it to the entities, and then return the entity to the UI, okay, and then display the data. Now if we use entity framework, then the most of the processes that I have discussed is taken care by the entity framework itself. So the programming becomes a lot more easier. Fine. Entity framework has got three approaches. So the first one is database first, and then the second one is model first, and the third one is code first. In our today's session we are going to discuss on that code first approach. Like what happens in various applications is that you first create the database, you define the tables, the structure and all, and then depending on that you create your business entities. But in that code first, it's the reverse. There is no database. You start writing your entity classes, and then entity framework generates the database and the tables depending on your entity classes. So let's start writing the code, and then we would understand what's going on. So what we are going to do is create entity, and the entity framework will create the table, the database and the table, okay, and the table. Spelling mistake, okay. Let me open the Visual Studio. So the first thing is you can create any application. I am creating a website. So my first code first project, okay, let's create it. Okay, so as I said, let's add an entity. So I will create an entities class and have all my entities there. So entities, it is saying, do you want to place that file in the app_code folder? Yes, I want. let's see. Okay, so it's created. Just remove this public class employee, add 3 properties. So just type in prop and hit tab twice. First is ID, okay. Second is string name, okay. Third is age, so let's type in, let's go here, age, done. So this is created, but now how does the table, how does the database and the table corresponding to the employee class get created? Now there is something called, let me switch here, okay, there is something called DB context class. Now this is the one, this is the heart of the entire entity framework application. This is the one that takes care of all the activities that I was talking about in my example. So DB context is responsible for creating your tables corresponding to your classes, for creating the queries, executing it, getting the data, then populating the entities. Everything is handled by the DB context class. So what we would do is we would add a context class inheriting from the DB context. So let's go here and just type in fast employee context, okay. Now if I try inheriting, I would see I am not getting the DB context. This resides in the system.data.entity, but if you see, it's not the entity namespace, it won't be there. So it's not there. It means we will have to install the entity framework, DLLs, go to the NuGet package manager, browse for entity framework. Here I have it, 6.13 version, install, okay, I accept, it's getting installed, okay. There is a problem, could not be found. I am not sure what happened. Let me try again. Let me do one thing, let me remove it first. Remove this. Okay, a lot of problems in my laptop as well. If it runs, it's good. Manage NuGet package manager again, entity framework, and let's try again. Okay, I accept. Fail to initialize the partial host. If your policy is set to all assigned, open the packet. Okay, I'm not sure what this is, so I will do one thing. I would save everything and close my solution once. Let me close my solution. Yes, save it please. Let's go open project solution, my first code folder. Okay, this is the one. Yep. Okay, so let's try adding it once again, and if it doesn't get added, we would try creating the project again. Okay, let's try again. If it gets added, well and good. So there is some problem. Let me do one thing. Let me remove this, close solution, and let me try creating the application again with a different name. So sorry, let's go here, new, as we had done earlier. Okay, let's name it something else. My first project, and empty website. Go here, add an entity. Okay, I'm sorry, should have selected class here instead of looking here and there. Employee, so I have employee. It says yes. Okay, now let's get the NuGet package manager, because we already know that it should be there, so hence let's add it. Okay, I hope this time it gets added. Okay, I accept. If you're okay. I am not sure. Let's close everything. I guess there's a problem here with my Visual Studio. Let's try again. I hope it works this time. Code first approach. Okay. Probably it's not getting the access or what. Let's see. Manage NuGet packages. So I'm adding that first to see if it at all works or not. If it doesn't, then I'm not sure actually. Let's do it. Okay, so this time it did. Good. Now let's add our class called employee. Okay. Yes, and please place it in the app_code folder. Let's add properties again. Lot of rework, but okay, no problem. So this time we have created employee class, no problem. So ID, then name, and then we have age. So done. Now, as I had said, we will have to add an employee context class. So let's go and add an employee context class straight away, and using system.data.entity, it should get it. Okay, then I have DB context. Okay, so I have it. Now this would return me in the employees. So let's create a property called employees, which would give me my employees, and their context class actually returns the data in that form of DB sets. So I say I get, please give me DB set of employees. So this property is added. Okay, but if you see the application, then nowhere we have mentioned information about our SQL Server database. So it means we will have to add a connection string. So let me add the connection string here. Basically, actually what I have already written that connection string. We already lost a lot of time in fixing the issue. So let me just copy this one here to make things fast. I have this connection string and I will explain you. So yep, this is the connection string. If you see, the main thing is that the name here, the name employee context is similar to the employee context class. The entity framework follows a number of conventions, and one of the conventions is that the connection string name should be same as this context class name. There are ways where you can change it, but we will discuss it in our later videos. As of now, let's have it same as this class. Okay, so now this is my server name, this is the database name that should get created. This is integrated security equal to true. Let's add a web form called employees. Make this the starter page, add a grid, it's in the data section, so grid, drag drop, okay, it's a wrong place, copy, paste, control KD, remove the extra line, okay, done. Let's go to the design and format the grid so that it looks good. Auto format, simple, okay, not bad. Let's go back to this again, not here, the CS class, I haven't opened it yet. Okay, let's add a method that would fetch me the employees. So populate, that would basically fetch the employees, populate and populate it. Okay, employees, populate employees. Okay, let's do one thing here. Let's change the name of the grid. Okay, the ID is not there at all, so let's add an ID. ID equals to grid view grdv employees. Save it. Okay, so what I do is I create an employee context class, says object. Okay, so employee context equals to new, and then I say grid view employees dot data source equals to employee context dot employees. Okay, I will have to change it to list because it's returning a DB set. That won't work, so let's, okay, now grdv employees dot data bind. So I guess most of that work is done. Let's save everything and let's refresh my database to show you that there is nothing called sample. Okay, let's run. If everything goes fine, it should create a database called sample. Okay, this time it's okay. Let me refresh. Okay, it's not created. Weird. Should have created. Let me go again and check, or am I missing anything? There might be something wrong here, the coding. Let's check. Okay. No, it's not created. Fine. Okay. The reason being, I did not invoke it. Okay. So everything goes fine. If everything goes fine, then it should create. Okay, let's refresh again, and I assume that things are okay this time. Yes. So the sample database is created and we have the employees table. Now before looking into the employees table, if you see, there is one more table called the migration history created. Let's see what it is. Select star from underscore migration history. Okay, let's change this to sample migration history and run. So if you see here, it stores the hashed, it stores the model in the hash format, means your entity is stored here in the hash format. Now if in between you change your entity and then run again, then you would get an error saying the entity is not matching with your database structure. Okay, then probably you would have to update it, or you would have to drop and create it. So yeah, we would discuss about all these things in our later videos. Now let's go and focus on the employees, and you see here that these columns have been created. Let's insert some records because it's not there. I have written the script, it's already there. I would copy it quickly. I lost a lot of time, so I'm trying to just make up for that. Okay, it's inserted. Go to your code, refresh it. You have 4 records. Okay, good. Now if you see here that the ID column is automatically as a primary key. Okay, and if you go to the design, it's the identity column as well. So entity framework by default does this identity specification. Yes. Now, so as I had already told you that entity framework follows certain conventions, and one more convention about the IDs, means about the primary keys, is that if any property name has a name as ID, or the class name followed by the ID is treated as their primary key. So let me drop this database here, delete, close existing connections. Okay, so it's dropped. Let me change this to employee ID. I'm just showing you an extra thing. I'm making it EMP ID, so it does not match with the convention. If I try running this, I should get an error because it's not the convention. Okay, so I get an error and it says entity type employee has no key defined. Define the key for this entity type employees, entity type, entity set, employees is based on type employee that has no keys defined. Okay, a very big statement, but yeah, it's that it's not following the standard to create the key basically. So you can override these convention. There are different ways. Like one way is using their annotations, and the other way is using their Fluent API. Here I am using the annotations, the attributes. So using system dot component model dot data annotations, that's it, and add an attribute here called key. Okay, so this would say that this is the primary column. Let me refresh and show you that there is nothing. Let's go back and execute. So, okay, so this is done. Refresh, created. Okay, so see, the EMP ID is your primary ID, and the design still here it would be the identity column, identity specification. Yes, let's go and run this script. Let me change this. Let me make someone as something else. 45, not a problem. Execute. Okay, execute. Done. Refresh. Okay. So like this is all for this session, and we will discuss more in our later videos. And thanks a lot for watching. Bye.